The first warning was so small that almost everyone walked past it. A pale yellow line had appeared along the edge of one melon leaf in row 12. Tu Tien turned the leaf toward the morning light. There were no visible insects. The stem was firm, and the plants around it still looked healthy. "It may be nothing," Han said. "Take a photograph now," Tu Tien replied, "then take another before sunset." She tied a short strip of red thread around the stem. Neither woman knew that before the week ended, 23 vines would carry the same warning, and Tu Tien would be hundreds of kilometers away when Jack called to say that 2 of them were beginning to collapse. Welcome back, and welcome to the family if this is your first chapter. Jack and Tu Tien are rebuilding a quiet life with Mother Loy in the mountains of Vietnam. Together, they have protected their home, survived storms, and recently helped restore water to farms across their village. Now those families are trying to turn their mountain tea, dried vegetables, honey, mushrooms, bamboo shoots, and handmade goods into a more secure future. You can begin their journey here. The earlier chapters are waiting in the series playlist whenever you are ready to discover how this family came so far. Subscribe and stay with Jack, Tu Tien, and Mother Loa. Their story is far from over. The invitation from Hanoi arrived beneath the family veranda that same morning. A major agricultural exhibition wanted Jack's company to present products made in the mountain region. The original program lasted 3 months. 3 months is impossible, Tu Tien said. It could introduce the village products to buyers we may never reach from here, Jack replied. The melon harvest is approaching, the families are still recovering from the water crisis, and Han has only just begun managing inspections. Mother Loy poured tea. An opportunity is valuable only when accepting it does not destroy what you already have. Tu Tien called the exhibition coordinator and explained the truth. The village could not commit to 3 months. They could prepare one small booth for 7 days, and use that time to learn whether buyers were genuinely interested. The coordinator hesitated, but Tu Tien did not exaggerate their capacity. Every product came from a different family, and the village needed to grow carefully. Finally, the coordinator agreed. 7 days. One small booth. No promise of a major order. You turned 3 months into 7 days, Jack said. I turned an impossible offer into one we may be able to protect. News of the journey spread through the village before noon. Mai brought dried vegetables from the field her family had nearly lost when the village water stopped flowing. Mr. Phuc brought his strongest mountain tea. The elderly market woman arrived with jars of pickled bamboo shoots, while a young beekeeper carried dark amber honey. Other families contributed mushrooms, dried herbs, woven baskets, and handmade goods. The table beneath the veranda filled quickly, but Tu Tien refused to take everything. She and Han checked each package for moisture, smell, cleanliness, and consistency. Several vegetable packages were returned for more drying. 2 honey jars were set aside because their lids did not close securely. One woman looked disappointed when Tu Tien rejected a basket of mushrooms. "They are still good enough for our home," she said. "For your home, perhaps," Tu Tien replied gently. "But one poor package may make a buyer distrust every family standing behind this table." The woman nodded. "I will prepare them again." During the afternoon, Tu Tien trained Han to supervise inspections while she was away. "If you are uncertain, call me," Tu Tien said. "And if the evidence is clear, make the decision. You do not need my permission to protect the standard we agreed on." Before sunset, they returned to row 12. The yellow line was wider. 5 more leaves now showed faint discoloration. Uncle Dung leaned closer. "I still think the leaves are only tired." "Leaves do not become tired," Han replied. "Then perhaps they are thinking too deeply." Han stared at him. Uncle Dung raised both hands and stepped back onto the path. Tu Tien marked 6 plants and asked Han and Jack to photograph them every morning and evening. No one was to carry muddy boots or tools from the marked section into another row. Jack watched her examine the soil. "Are you thinking of canceling the trip?" "The marks may spread if you stay. Can you guarantee the plants will survive?" "No." "If you go, will Han and I ignore them?" "No." "Then do not let fear make the decision." That evening, Jack brought an old brown suitcase from the storage room. One handle was loose, the corners were scratched, and the lining was torn. "This belonged to my father," he said. He used it when he traveled to buy tools for the village. Jack repaired the handle, strengthened the strap, cleaned the metal corners, and stitched the lining. The suitcase still looked old, but it was strong again. Before closing it, he placed a small wooden carving inside. It showed two narrow roads separating around a mountain and joining again on the other side. "What does it mean?" Tu Tien asked. "That two people do not have to stand in the same place to keep walking toward the same home." Mother Lua looked down, hiding a small smile. The family reached the mountain railway station before sunrise. Mist covered the single track and the forested slopes. Mother Lua carried a basket of food and warm tea. "You know I am going for 7 days, not crossing an ocean," Tu Tien said. "People can still become hungry before reaching Hanoi." Han held the inspection notebook. "I will send photographs every morning and evening." "Show me anything that changes," Tu Tien said. She turned to Jack. "Do not wait until you have solved the problem. I will tell you when it begins, not only when it ends." The train entered the station. Tu Tien embraced Mother Loi, thanked Han, and placed one hand against Jack's cheek. "I will return after 7 days, and the field will still be here." The train pulled away. Tu Tien watched until a mist hid them. Then she opened the suitcase and found Jack's carving between the packages. 2 roads separating. 2 roads returning. The agricultural exhibition occupied a large hall in Hanoi. Bright lights shone across polished displays, product towers, screens, and carefully arranged tables from large companies. Tu Tien's booth stood near the end of one aisle. It had a plain wooden table, several woven baskets, small product packages, and photographs of the people who made them. Beside it, a large company displayed hundreds of identical tea boxes beneath an illuminated wall. A representative in a dark suit looked at Tu Tien's booth. "You brought very little stock. We brought what we can produce consistently. Buyers prefer professional presentation. They also prefer products that remain good after the presentation ends." He smiled politely and walked away. During the first hour, most visitors passed without stopping. One buyer asked for a price list and left. Another wanted far more product than the village could produce. Tu Tien refused to promise it. By midday, the large booths were crowded while her table remained almost untouched. She looked at the photographs of Mr. and Zillis, Fuck, May, the elderly market woman, and the young beekeeper. The village had trusted her to carry more than packages. But the people walking through the hall could not see the hands behind them. Tu Tien prepared Mr. Bear, Fuchs tea, arranged tasting portions of maize vegetables, and opened a jar of bamboo shoots. Then she moved the samples closer to the aisle. An older woman wearing reading glasses stopped when she smelled the tea. "Is it strong?" "Yes. The man who made it has grown tea for most of his life. He refuses to dry the leaves quickly, so I cannot promise a large supply." "You are telling me why you cannot sell more." "I am telling you why this cup tastes the way it does." The woman smiled and asked for a second cup. More visitors stopped. "These vegetables came from a field that lost its water during the hottest part of the season," Tu Tien explained. "We rejected several packages because they were not dry enough." "You rejected products from a family that needed money?" one visitor asked. "Yes, if the first order fails, that family may lose every future order." By late afternoon, Tu Tien had received several small purchases, 2 requests for samples, and 1 invitation to discuss a restaurant order. The amounts were modest, but people were no longer walking past. Near closing time, Miss Hoa entered the aisle. She watched Tu Tien serve tea and answer questions. She examined the records, the names of the families, and the notes describing available quantities. When the final visitors left, Ms. Hoa picked up a package of vegetables. "Why is there less product in this package than the one beside it?" "They came from different batches. We did not add lower quality pieces to make the packages look identical." "Can you produce 300 packages next week?" "No." Many exhibitors would have said yes. Then many exhibitors would spend next week searching for products they had already promised. Miss Hoa studied her. "I supply stores across several provinces. I am looking for someone who will tell me about a problem before the products reach my shelves." She handed Tu Tien a business card. Meet me tomorrow morning at 7:30. What would you like to discuss? A control trial. 3 stores to begin with. For the first time that day, Tu Tien allowed herself to feel the full weight of hope. That evening, she returned to the guest house and placed Ms. Hoa's card beside Jack's carving. At 7:30 the next morning, one meeting could open a road for many village families. Tu Tien called home. Hanh answered from the melon field. The evening light was fading, and Tu Tien immediately saw more red cloth than she expected. How many plants are marked? The yellow edges became brown this afternoon. Some dark marks are moving inward along the veins. How many? 23 vines across 3 rows. Show me the stems. Jack took the phone and lowered the camera toward the soil. 2 stems were bending downward. They are beginning to soften, he said. Have you removed anything? Only fallen leaves. We separated the tools, stopped watering the leaves, and blocked everyone from carrying mud into the healthy rows. Behind him, Mother Loy and Uncle Dung were preparing sealed sacks. Han had cleared a narrow path around the affected section. They had followed every instruction, but the disease was moving faster. Should I come home? Tu Tien asked. Jack looked across the marked rows. The earliest train leaves at 7:30 tomorrow morning, she continued. If I leave before 7, I can reach the station. What time is the meeting? 7:30. Han looked toward Jack. Mother Loy stopped tying one of the sacks. The 2 roads had reached the same hour. There was no earlier train, and Ms. Hoa's appointment could not be moved. Jack walked away from the workers so they could speak privately. Our entire harvest could be lost, Tu Tien said. Yes. And the village may not receive another opportunity like this meeting. Yes. What are you asking me to do? Jack looked toward the red cloth moving in the evening wind. Stay in Hanoi, Tu Tien. Finish the meeting. You are standing in a field that may be dying, and you are carrying the work of every family that trusted you. What if the disease reaches another row? Han and I will call immediately. What if you cannot stop it? Jack did not offer a false promise. Then we will face the loss together. Tu Tien lowered the phone. On the table were Miss Hoa's business card and Jack's wooden carving. One road led to the exhibition hall. The other led to the railway station. Tu Tien spent the night studying photographs from the field. At 5:40 the next morning, Han sent another update. The disease had not reached a 4th row, but the 2 weakest vines were folding closer to the soil. At 6:45, Tu Tien dressed for the meeting, placed Ms. Hoa's file inside her shoulder bag, packed the repaired suitcase, and carried it downstairs. A taxi waited outside the guest house. If she entered it now, she could reach the station before the train left. Across the street, the exhibition hall lights began turning on. Jack called again. Behind him, Han was tying red cloth around another weakened vine. Should I come home? Tu Tien asked one final time. Jack wanted to say yes. She could see it in his face. But he looked toward Han, Mother Loy, Uncle Dung, and the workers already standing in the field. Do not return because you think we are helpless, he said. Make the choice you can still respect when this day is over. The taxi driver opened the rear door. At the same moment, Miss Hoa's assistant opened the glass entrance across the street. Tu Tien stood between them. In one hand, she held Jack's repaired brown suitcase. In the other, she held the folder containing the hopes of the village families. The clock changed to 7:2029. The taxi driver waited. The exhibition entrance remained open. Tu Tien closed her fingers around the wooden carving inside her pocket. 2 roads had separated. At 7:30, only one of them could receive her. Subscribe and stay with this family, because the next chapter begins with the choice Tu Tien can no longer avoid. And for those who have only just met Jack, Tu Tien and Mother Loy, their earlier journey from protecting Mother Loy's land to bringing water back to the village is waiting in the series playlist below.